Okay, now, of course, we're going to move to talk about the self-regulating economy. Remember, we said that, the classical economists believe that the economy is self-regulating. What that means? It means that the economy heals itself by itself. In other words, the economy will move on its own in the direction of the long-run equilibrium to produce the natural GDP. So if the economy is in this equilibrium state, that is, it's not producing the full employment output or the natural GDP, then the economy, because it is self-regulating, it will move on its own in the direction of the long-run equilibrium in order to produce the full employment output or the natural GDP. So now we're going to, talk about what happens if the self-regulating economy is in a recessionary gap. What happens if the self-regulating economy is in an inflationary gap? So we're going to talk about, the self-regulating economy and how the economy eventually moves to long-run equilibrium, So let me erase this one over here. So, the classical economists believe that the economy is self-regulating. What that means? It means that the economy will move on its own in the direction of the long-run equilibrium to produce the natural GDP. It means that the economy will move on its own in the direction of the long-run equilibrium. To produce the full employment output. Or natural real GDP. Okay, so now we're going to see what happens if the self-regulating economy is in a recessionary gap. What happens if the self-regulating economy is in an inflationary gap? So let's look at these cases to see how the economy moves to long-run equilibrium, producing the national GDP. So here we're going to start. What happens if the self-regulating economy is in an inflationary gap. Okay, so let me, present the graph, the case, an inflationary gap, present that graphically, okay? Graphically, okay, okay, we're going to have this here. This is real GDP, and this is the price level. Price level. And this is here aggregate demand. This is short run aggregate supply, and this is over here the long run aggregate supply, and this is here QM, where QN, as we mentioned before, it is the the natural GDP, okay, and this is the economy over here, Q1, okay. The economy is now producing at Q1, okay. The economy is now producing at Q1, producing Q1. Remember here, let's just state some facts about this, case of an inflationary gap. Here in an inflationary gap, facts. Here we note that Q1 is greater than Q1. Okay? The level of real GDP that the economy is producing at 1 is greater than, of course, Q1. So Q1 is greater than Q1. What else we can conclude here? Of course, since Q1 is greater than Q1, it is natural to see that the level of the unemployment rate here is lower than the level of unemployment rate here. So the unemployment rate at Q1 is less than the natural unemployment rate. Okay? Q1 is greater than Q1. It means the unemployment rate here is less than the unemployment over here. Okay? What another fact we can have about this case or this state of the economy, which is the inflationary state? Of course, since the unemployment rate at Q1 is lower than the unemployment rate at Q1, then definitely we're going to have a shortage in the labor market. So we have a shortage. We have a shortage in the labor market. Okay? Now, of course, a shortage in the labor market means what? Means that, eventually, of course, the shortage in the labor market will eventually exert an upward pressure on the wage rates. In other words, as the old wage rates, expire, then business firm will, negotiate new wages, okay, that pay what? That pay higher, wages, that pay higher wages, okay? So here what we see here, eventually, the wage rate will rise in response to the shortage in the labor market. Remember, shortage in the labor market means the quantity demanded of labor, of course, is greater than the quantity supplied of labor. More jobs are available than there are workers looking for work. So therefore, they have to raise the wages. So wage rates by itself is a factor of the short-run aggregate supply. It's not a factor of the aggregate demand. Therefore, as wage rates increase, then that will impose higher cost on firms, which implies that the level of production will go down. And that means the shorter aggregate supply will shift to the left. So here we say as the wage rates increase, then the cost of production will increase, causing the short-run aggregate supply to decrease. That is, it shifts leftward. Okay, so we're going to see, second graph here will illustrate what happens. This is real GDP, and this is the price level. This is, the aggregate demand. This is the aggregate demand. This is short-run aggregate supply. And this is over here, the long-run aggregate supply. This is QN. And this is Q1. So what happens to the short-run aggregate supply? It will shift leftward. It will continue to shift, okay, until it reaches point 2. Okay? Short-run aggregate supply to 0 here. Okay? What happens here? That the price level over here as you can see here, the price level will, increase, okay, the price level will continue to increase, okay, until, the economy reaches the long-run equilibrium, And then when the price level increases, that means the level of real GDP, the quantity demand of real GDP will do what? Will decrease due to the, real balance effect, international trade effect, and the, interest rate effect, okay? So what happens eventually? The short-term supply will continue to move upward until the economy produces, the national GDP. That's why we say that a self-regulating economy is an economy, a self-regulating economy. It means what? It will move on its own in the direction of the long-run equilibrium, either to the right or to the left. The long-run equilibrium is here. So as you can see, the short-term supply will move on its own in the direction of the long-run equilibrium in order to produce eventually the potential output, the real GDP, or the full employment output, or the potential output. So now, as you can see, here, the price level, as I said, will also increase, continue to increase, until eventually we move from point 1 to point 2 along the aggregate demand, okay, and eventually, producing a QN. Okay, so here causing to decrease, that is a shift forward, it will continue to increase, it will continue to decrease, that is a shift upward, until it reaches 0.2 along the aggregate demand, ultimately reducing QN. Okay, so now this is exactly what happens over here, and this is basically the case, takes place because of the the flexibility of the wage rate and the price level, according to the the classical economists who believe that the economy is self-regulating. So let's move to the other case, or which is what happens if a self-regulating economy is in a recessionary gap. Okay, let me erase over here. Now we're going to look at the second case. What happens if the economy, if the self-regulating economy is in a recessionary gap? Okay, of course, graphically, as you can see, is an economy that is in a recessionary gap can be illustrated graphically as you see over here. This is real GDP, and this is the price level. This is aggregate demand. This is short-run aggregate supply. Okay. And this is here, long run QN. This is long run aggregate supply. And this is one over here, Q1. So the economy is at 0.1. Of course, this is the economy, reducing Q1. Q1, as you can see, is less than QN. So let's put the facts about this economy. Facts. First, Q1 is less than QN. Two, of course, if Q1 less than QN, then of course we're going to have the level of unemployment at the Q1 is going to be higher than the level of employment at QN. And the unemployment rate at QN is called the natural unemployment rate. So we can see here the unemployment rate at Q1 is higher than the natural unemployment rate. Because of course, the unemployment rate at QN, at the natural GDP, it's called the natural unemployment rate. So as you can see, since Q1 is less than QN, then the unemployment rate at the Q1 is much higher than the unemployment rate at Qn. 3, of course, because of this, we're going to have a surplus in the labor market. In other words, we're going to have more workers looking for work than there are jobs available. That's called a surplus. So we have a surplus in the labor market. A surplus in the labor market. So because we have a surplus in the labor market, then, the economy eventually, the market will exert a downward pressure on the wage rate. In other words, as the old wage rate contracts expire or end, then business firm will begin to negotiate a new, wage rates contracts that pay, lower wages. So now we say a surplus in the labor market. Here we say a surplus in the labor market will exert a downward pressure on the wage rate. So wages will decrease. Why? Because, business firms will negotiate new contracts that will pay workers, lower wages. Because eventually the contracts will end. So they have to negotiate new contracts. So these contracts will pay, higher or lower wages. So we know that wage rate is a factor of short and aggregate supply. So when wage rate goes down, it means the cost of production will decrease, which implies that the firms will be able to produce more. That is, short and aggregate supply will shift to the right. So here we say that a surplus in the labor market will exert a downward pressure on the wage rate, so wages will decrease, causing the short-run aggregate supply to increase. Wages are a factor of the short-run aggregate supply. When wages go down, it means short-run aggregate supply will shift to the right. That is, it will increase. So shift to the right. That is, it shifts to the right. So let me, show that over here. This is real GDP. This is the price level. This is, of course, aggregate demand, short run aggregate supply, of course, and then you have over here UN. This is long run aggregate supply. This is 1, and this is Q1. Okay, so as I said, the short-run supply will, of course, increase, of course, because, when you have a shortage in the labor market, of course, when you have a surplus in the labor market, then, the short-run supply, because of self-regulated economy, it will move on its own in the direction of the long-run equilibrium. This is the long-run equilibrium. So we expect that this one will continue to move, until, intersect the, the long-run aggregate supply, the aggregate demand over here at point 2. This is short-run aggregate supply 2. So, as you can see, the economy moves along the aggregate demand from point 1 to point 2, causing the price level to decrease. This is P1, and this is P2. Okay, as you can see, the price level decreases, and when the price level decreases, the price level will continue to decrease. Will continue to decrease. Okay, due to that, of course, the price level will continue to decrease, causing the quantity demanded to increase. Okay, due to the real balance effect, international trade effect, and interest rate effect. So when the price level will continue, the price level decreases, then what happens to the current demand of GDP will continue to increase. It will increase from Q1 to Q1. Okay, until eventually the economy, will produce Q1. Okay, so until the economy, it will be along the long run against supply producing Q1. So as you can see here, until it reaches point 2 along the aggregate demand curve. So eventually, the economy will produce Q1, naturally GDP. Okay, so as you can see, a surplus in the labor market will cause the wage rate to decrease, and the decrease in the wage rate, of course, will cause the short-run supply to increase, that is shift to the right, and that will continue until, the economy will, eventually move to long-run equilibrium, producing Q1. So here, as you can see, the economy is self-regulating. That means it will move, always on its own in the direction of the long-run equilibrium in order to produce the national real GDP. So if the economy is not producing the national GDP, according to the classical economists who believe that the economy is self-regulating, the economy will move of course, to produce Q1, to eventually produce Q1, the national real GDP. So this is actually, basically shows that the views of the classical economists who believe that the economy is self-regulating, and then the economy will always, move on its own to in the direction of the long-run equilibrium in order to produce the natural real GDP.